Okay. So let's just go to the stuff I'd prepared. I was something about Tonglen and insight was a big word, isn't it? But it's also, you know, we're not talking about like an absolute realization as all becoming Buddhas today. But you know, you could say insight with a smaller I, just insight, just seeing things as they really are, or and we talked about that just now as well. That a lot of the time that the conceptual mind is sort of getting in the way of that direct experience of what's happening inside of us or around us. Doesn't really matter that much. So that's why in the first stage of the practice and also the last stage, there's so much emphasis on that dropping out of conceptualization as much as you can. I mean, it's also not possible probably to do that totally, but somehow connecting up with that sense of spaciousness. And the spaciousness, we talked about this before. I would say that spaciousness is the same kind of spaciousness as you could have, as we call the heart space, possibly, because it's the kind of spaciousness that's also at the same time it's where everything is born, as it were. So I love that image of the word for it in Sanskrit is garba. I think it's like a womb, or so it's not really an enclosed space, it's an open space, but it's just some sort of endless space with potential in it. And one could say that is the actual space, or space is not even the word, because it's about a particular location. We're not talking about a particular location, but something that is quite boundless and limitless and full of potential. And so this is the space of the mind. This is our mind space. It is everybody's mind space, really. But what we often do is there's things coming up, might be an emotion or it might be thought, and then we seem to somehow make that into something that is solid, and that is often the problem. So we are constructing these narratives, like whole narratives of our lives, or we're constructing something from a thought, or even constructing a person who is observing something. I'll say a bit more about that. It might be quite it is all, I think, difficult to grasp. It's a bit difficult to grasp this kind of stuff, but I think it is fairly simple. In the basis of it is that it's our conceptualization that is often at the problem of our suffering. And but also in terms of the Dharma, I'm speaking, you're reading the Dharma, etc. We're also communicating via concepts. I mean, that's the beauty of it. So what we're trying to do, I think, on the spiritual path is trying to replace these concepts that aren't helpful with concepts that are helpful. And so I don't know how it happens, but it seems to, like every time a thought comes up, so just any kind of thought comes up, and then something sort of happens, some sort of mechanism happens in the mind that makes that me, and it makes it mine, and it makes it like I'm having something. And that's where the problems start, because you could just allow things to come up and then they'll just sort of dissipate again. That's the nature of things. That's just how things work. And but that's not how we're geared up. So I think that is the whole training process that we're in, to see that. So in some way to wake up to that tendency and deeply ingrained habit of the mind to do that. And I think most of you must have heard of these 3 marks of existence that the Buddha described. So any kind of experience, he's saying, or mind phenomenon has these 3 characteristics. It's that it's insubstantial and unsatisfactory and impermanent. It's the 3 lakshanas. Most people have learned about that, I think. But I've been thinking about the Tonglen practice in relation to these 3 marks of existence, and I think that when we're doing the practice, the breathing in, what's difficult, the letting go or the breathing out of the beautiful qualities on the out breath, there's something that we directly get access to. It's that sense of impermanence, that the mind is constantly shifting and changing. I think we are directly experiencing that sense of impermanence when we're working with our experience in this kind of way, in the Tonglen kind of way. And then obviously in terms of dukkha, one of those marks of existence, that's what we're doing, isn't it? That's what we're working with in our experience. We're constantly turning towards that and opening up to that. So in that sense it also, I think, connects to these lakshanas. And then lastly, insubstantiality, and that's the one that I think we learn most of. And through breathing in, that is difficult, I think we directly, experientially see that quality of it's not solid. It isn't solid. My ideas, any thoughts, any situations, they're not solid. We think they're solid somehow on a deeper level, or we might intuit that they're solid, but they're not. We could just breathe them in and we could just breathe out whatever, because such is the nature of the mind, that we can do that. So that's that sense of insubstantiality. So if we would have a bit of an investigation and a journey into looking at the nature of mind, we really can't find it. In the meditation, it's not like we can find the mind anywhere, is it? I don't know if anybody's ever found the mind, but the mind is just a construct, again, a conceptual construct of whatever we're experiencing, or however that's working. That is what we call mind, but it's not like it's got a color or a shape or like a boundary around it, but yet sometimes that is how we seem to perceive this. And there is no beginning or no end to all of this. There just isn't. Can you ever find a beginning? Can you ever find an end? And even with thoughts, if we're looking at our thoughts, it's not like we can exactly know when they start and exactly know when they end. It just seems to kind of like, then they're there and then they're gone. So it's that capacity of the mind, that insubstantial nature, that we are constantly turning towards in the Tonglen practice. And I think that by breathing in my narrative, I can breathe in my narrative about like how I am, how I am perceived, how my life has been. I could just breathe all of that in, and I could breathe out clarity. I could breathe out whatever I want to breathe out that's helpful. And I think in doing that, our heart, our intuition are tuning in with this capacity of the mind, this insubstantiality. And then, you could apply the same thing for the construct of our own identity. Yes, I'm having a thought, but it doesn't mean there needs to be some sort of defined sort of person that is having a thought. So the thought of it's also just a thought. The thinker or the observer is also a construction that's coming up in our own mind. That is how we confine ourselves. That is how we create our mind-made manacles for ourselves. So yes, yeah. I think maybe we could just all drop into this wordless area, but usually that is not what happens, is it? We're usually sort of in the practice itself, sort of moving in and out of a bit of clarity, a bit of seeing, moving into completely being caught up in our thoughts, completely being convinced by our thoughts. This is real, this is actually really how it is, this thought. So we're completely sort of spun in all the time, and then we're taking a step back again, we're breathing it in, and then we're finding that spaciousness again, and we're breathing out that beautiful love, compassion, whatever you want to tune into. So we're constantly working with this in the Tonglen practice, and sometimes we're asleep, you know, we're just like maybe thinking about other stuff. I don't know what we're doing in the practice, and that's okay, because that is just the whole rhythm is like that. We're going into that, the non-conceptual, turning towards suffering, waking up again. So that's the beautiful rhythm of it, I find. Anyway, I hope that hope you're still with me. Yeah, everybody's still with me. Good, lovely. Sometimes on these particular topics, I remember moments that we're all sitting around clutching the table, thinking, oh, well, yeah, is there stuff there? Yeah, there's stuff there. I feel something. But anyway, we're not talking about the objects around us, because that's clear. I'm holding the table. There's a wall behind me. No doubt about it. That's real. That's here. But the mind is of a different nature. And sometimes I think we confuse the two. We think that this is how the mind is. It isn't. There's just no obstructions there. Nothing of that nature at all. Okay. And then I'm just wanting to go into bodhicitta for a bit, because well, just reading out this this poem by Shantideva. Whoever wishes quickly to become a refuge for himself and others should undertake this sacred mystery, to take the place of others, giving them his own. So I'm going to read that out again. Whoever wishes quickly to become a refuge for himself and others should undertake this sacred mystery, to take the place of others, giving them his own. So this is what's called exchanging self and other. If you read Shantideva, there's a lot of that around. And this is like the pivotal bit thing, whatever that the whole practice, the Tonglen practice is about. So we're breathing in our own suffering, breathing out whatever, but at some point we're also breathing out other people's suffering and starting to support themselves. And somehow through doing that, it seems to be that antidote of that grasping or that craving, that identification that we instinctively are doing. So through doing that, through starting to breathe in other people's difficulty or whatever, and breathing out whatever is supportive of them, we're tuning into that space of truth, that the mind space is just mind space. It isn't me and mine, and it's just stuff that's coming up, and that is the same for everybody else as well. So through doing that, through breathing that in, and then like exchanging self for others, that's somehow how we are tuning into this truth. This is how the nature of reality seems to be. At least that's what the tradition tells us. What the Buddha told us, and it's, you could say that attitude of exchanging self and others is the attitude of the Bodhisattva. It is also I think, what I often think about as well, is that it's the same attitude that caused the Buddha to go on his quest. It's that motivation that you're not doing the practice for yourself alone, but you're doing the practice for others, well, including yourself as well. Yeah. So, so you could say that the motivation for the whole practice, the bodhicitta, is that space of exchanging self, exchanging others, because this is what the truth of the nature of reality is all about. Yeah. So I don't know how that lands with you. But so you could say that the difficulty often is that we get this mistaken, what just innocent experience, thoughts, etc. for this is me, this is mine, sort of holding on to it, solidifying it, and on the basis of that we might build a whole narrative that causes us suffering, causes other people suffering, causes us to act in ways that causes other people suffering. So if you do that exchanging self and others, you get close to the truth, and you're simulating it in terms of you're just doing the practice probably, which is and you might, when you might not be tuned into the nature of the reality, you could just do the practice, and then through doing the practice getting close to that attitude of the bodhisattva, the bodhicitta. Anyway, how am I doing with that? Not sure about this. There's a few nods, there's a few thumbs up. Well, I think that there's a lot, I could imagine there's a lot of questions here. But I think I'm going to leave it here. Just looking at my notes to see if there's anything I'd like to add. I just hope that was clear enough. I think, yeah, we do get caught up in concepts, and there's nothing wrong with concepts. Concepts are fantastic because they allow us to speak with each other and to connect with each other, but also the tendency of the mind to conceptualize in a wrong way is at the cause of our suffering. So yeah, that's why we're trying to address this. But the practice, I love this practice. I hope you love it too. I don't know. But in this practice, we're doing all of that. We are working with that relative. The relative bodhicitta, you could say, just by working with our own suffering, working with other people's suffering. At the same time, we sometimes get these glimpses of absolute bodhicitta, which is like, this is the expansive mind, this is the space of infinite potential, and this is how things actually really are. Yeah? Not sure, but let's see how we get on with this. Yeah, let's see how we get on with this. Just going to see what's in the chat here. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, 6-element practice, somebody's saying, is helping them with the Tonglen. Yes, totally. 6-element practice as well. It's getting into that space of, it's just open mind space full of potential. It's not me or mine. It's not like I'm making things happen. And then somebody's saying the breathing could be conceptual. Yeah. Yeah. The breathing in is very conceptual. Well, as I said, there's nothing wrong with concepts as long as we know they're concepts. You see what I mean? There's these positive concepts, as it were, that are helping us, and there's concepts that aren't helping us. And I always like that in terms of the path of the Dharma, that first you have the wrong view, which is the concepts that aren't helpful and that are causing a suffering, and then you have the right view, which is all the Dharma concepts, but then you also have the space of no view, and that's what we learn about. This is the truth of being, but we can't jump from wrong to no view, if you see what I mean. We've got to go through that process of somehow replacing our wrong views with the right views, the views of the teachings of the Buddha, and trying to see the world through these glasses. But at some point, the glasses need to come off completely, if that makes sense. Okay. Okay, so just we can stay here forever. I know, and not meditate, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say one more thing about how the breathing can be conceptual. I think Sharon was saying that, asking that. I think the breathing, the way that the breath itself obviously can't be conceptual because it's just doing its thing, but how we perceive our breathing can be conceptual. And I know that for myself, when I learned the mindfulness of breathing, I think initially I was like visualizing this like maybe some lungs in front of me, and the air would come in like a flow, and then the air going out. Okay, yeah. So it's like you're seeing the breath in front of you, which is completely conceptual, which is very different from feeling the breath in the body, feeling your whatever it is moving on the breath. That's the direct experience of the breath. And yeah, anyway, I don't know whether that makes any sense at all, but we can conceptualize our whole body, and we do. If I ask you, whatever I'm going to suggest to you in the practice is obviously all conceptual, and then you have to find your your non-conceptual experience of that in your own heart, as it were. And that is part of that journey of the meditation. I think I've been speaking too long now. I'm going to try to stop this torrent, and we'll do some practice, and maybe just take a minute or so to transition from all the talking and thinking to something that's a bit more peaceful and quiet, and us just sitting in our posture. So we meditate for about 25 minutes. I'm also still settling in, so do take your time. We're not machines. Wish there was an on and off button, but there isn't. So just allowing all these processes to settle for as much as they want to. Maybe starting by feeling the body, the contact of the body with your seat. If you want to close your eyes, but just getting used to sitting really feeling the body, feeling the sensations in the body, and getting a sense of that earth below carrying you. Supporting you and your weight, the whole body. And getting a sense of the space around you, just sensing your way into it somehow. Space above, in front, on the side, at the back and below. The relative solidity of the body, that weight, feeling it. But then also finding in your experience any spaces in the body, feeling spaciousness. And trying to drop out of trying to figure out, understanding everything, knowing, just getting a sense of that unobstructed spaciousness, full of potential. And you can also find it between the sounds. Between the thoughts. and maybe it doesn't feel spacious, and maybe you can just find a tiny bit, a tiny crack. And also finding any spaciousness around the breath. You could say the breathe in could be meeting spaciousness. So we're tuning into the breath. Feeling the texture of the breath. The friction of the air coming in and the air going out. And this is our thread. A constantly shifting and changing thread. And when you're ready, starting to imbue the out-breath with well-wishing, whatever feels available right now. It's not me, it's not mine. I'm not producing it. You could say we're just channeling it somehow, these beautiful qualities that we need. Love, tenderness, stability, wisdom. And when that feels natural somehow, also tuning into any aspects of your experience right now that feel difficult, contracted, confusing. And breathing out your response, the response of that open heart space. And if it helps you to visualize any Buddhas or Bodhisattvas there, please do so. breathing in any thoughts about the practice. And if it feels too complicated, do make it simpler by first connecting back again with the texture of the breath before imbuing, perfuming the breath. Weaving whatever experience arises into the practice. With the thread of the breath. And even if we feel ourselves nodding off, we could just breathe that in and breathing out awakeness, alertness, breathing in any tension, breathing out, letting go, freedom, support. And whenever the practice seems a bit far away, you drifted off into other thoughts, just bring it back gently and re-engage with the breath. Breathing in confusion, breathing out clarity. And whenever you feel ready, starting to engage with other people's suffering. We might want to think of somebody, or we might want to keep it more abstract. Anyone else who's suffering from the same thing as you are at this moment, or just someone you know is suffering right now. And you could breathe in a situation, or a thought, or an emotion, or an image. We're just working with whatever is available to us in our mind space at this moment, turning towards that. Meeting the breath, feeling the texture of the breath whilst you're turning towards that suffering, breathing out, well-wishing. Don't forget you could take a little break in the practice, just letting the breath just do its own thing. If it feels a bit too much, too laboured, too artificial, just letting that go and see what comes up and work with that. Meeting what's here right now. Looking after the suffering through breathing it in. Looking after any pain, hurt, and you could continue with this for a bit longer, or join in as we're dropping out of the Tonglen part of the meditation. Into that sense of spaciousness, or just into whatever is here right now. Don't need to do anything with it. Allowing everything to find its own place and to disappear again. Just sitting, resting, for a few more minutes. Okay, let's just have a break for 10 minutes and then we'll come back and then do another practice. Okay, so we'll see each other back at 10 past. Yeah, is that okay? Yep. Have a small cup of tea. See you then. Hi, Millie. Otherwise, I couldn't do my session. So I went to Airbnb near, it's called Pakefield, near the sea. So maybe you've heard the seagulls there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that was 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
Anyway, but now, yeah, I would because we're in tier 4 for those of you not in the UK, which is yeah, everything is accelerated here. So we're in tier 4 since yesterday morning, and that means that you can't go into an Airbnb anymore. Anyway, it doesn't matter because the broadband is still fairly decent. Okay, we're back. We're just having a chat, at least I hope we are. Sometimes a bit disconcerting just to sit here talking to myself, but luckily there's some nice people smiling at me. That's lovely. Yes, I just wanted to say that just before we meditated, there was this Anne said something in the chat about breathing and conceptual, and I think I had the wrong end of the stick when I responded to that. I think what I got from that when I read it again just now in the break, so I do think that sometimes, you're sitting there trying to kind of connect to something, trying to think about something, and then it becomes quite sort of thinky. And if you can at all, I think the best thing to do is just like maybe, if you can, just drop out of that or let that go a bit and just let whatever wants to emerge just emerge. And it's not an easy thing to do often, but we can train ourselves to do that. Especially if you feel the quality of the thinking is a bit laboured and unpleasant, you might just want to just go back to the body and the breath, and then from there something will just emerge. This is the thing, isn't it? Something is always going to emerge, and that's what we're working with. Something is always going to come up, and we'll just turn towards that. Just breathe with that and see how that goes. So that's, I don't know whether how easy that is, because I think often the quality of our thinking tells us also something about the emotion underneath. If there are a lot of thoughts and they're coming hard and fast, it does often say there is something, yeah, you're just agitated, aren't you? So you have that whole thing like the difficult emotion with all the thoughts going around. So in that case, maybe we could just breathe in like, okay, I can't do this right now, or something like that. We could always find a way to then sort of turn towards that unpleasantness of it. Or maybe I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's going to happen. I can breathe that in. So it's quite really, really, really organic, this practice. You see what, you're just really working with whatever comes up in your mind stream. And that's the best material ever. But we shouldn't try to force it, I think. Not trying to kind of create something that is really feels really, really hard to create, as it were. Anyway, so I think that is something to learn in the practice as well. To just turn towards whatever is trying to drop out at, trying to figure it out, trying to create something, to be really like, oh, I'm going to do this now, I'm going to do that now. Just dropping into a bit of a simpler mode, I guess. Anyway, sounds simple? but isn't easy. Yeah, I always really like that. A lot of that is like that, isn't it? A lot of the Dharma is like that. Yeah, you hear it, it's like incredibly simple, but is it easy to do? Not sure. Need a lot of training for that. Anyway, I think we're all probably back, and then let's do another meditation. We'll do 15 minutes of it, if that's okay. Yeah, a bit shorter, might be a few minutes longer. Let's see how it goes. So again, finding the posture. Finding a posture that you feel you can sustain for another 20 minutes or 15 minutes, somewhere in between. And if you're directly dropping into some sort of sense of the breath, that might work. Otherwise, just sit with that spaciousness. Dropping into experience, direct experience. You don't need to know what it is about. Just sensing what's here. Getting a sense of that infinite mind space. With the earth below, the stability below, touching in with that. And then engaging with the breath, gently and when you feel ready, starting to engage with whatever you find in your experience right now that's painful, unpleasant. Breathing it in, breathing out any support. Understanding and sympathy. The pain that comes from being a human being in the world today. Breathing out your love, compassion. Breathing in your vulnerability. Breathing out your support. And when you're ready, weaving in other people, or just staying with yourself. Since I'm working with my own pain, I might as well work with others. Including them. Being real in the world. Breathing in a sense of lack, breathing out endless potential for love and patience. Breathing in all the suffering created by a lack of understanding. Breathing out wisdom. Still feeling the body, feeling the breath. And then letting go of the Tonglen part of the practice. Letting go of any trying to work with the breath. And just experiencing the open space of the mind. And all the experiences coming up, disappearing. None of it me or mine, but just experience. And nothing can be held onto here. Even if we try. So why should we try? I just love looking at all these windows. Okay, so hopefully you'll have some time to move into a different phase. Just been doing the meditation, so now we're going to do the breakout groups. And again, the invitation is to talk about your experience with the Tonglen. Whether it was just now or earlier today. Okay. Yeah, just going to really briefly, hopefully, go to the Anne's remark. Yes, of course, in a sense, it's like what I was saying, you know, this is real, isn't it? Your problems are real, your pain is real, and obviously, if you've got really, really difficult stuff going up, coming up. It is real. It's not like it's not real. It really is. This is what we're experiencing. This is real. But maybe what's suggested by the Dharma and the practice doesn't exist in the way we think it exists. So yes, it's difficult. Yes, it's incredibly painful, and my heart goes out to you. But at the same time, we don't mean that if it's not me or mine, that I don't have problems, that I don't have pain. It's more the kind of thinking that the problems are completely solid. And so this is what I find really beautiful about life, is that yes, I can have a problem. I can have massive, incredibly unimaginable problems, but still there's still other experience coming up at the same time. So there's still, like, the sun is still shining, there's still flowers, there's still somebody smiling at you, there's still a bit of love, there's still a bit of, like, the pleasantness of a cup of tea. So that's all woven into it. And what we do often is we're somehow creating a big solid blob out of whatever it is that we're finding difficult, and that makes it even more difficult, because it isn't like that. And even if it's really difficult, like, look at pain and experiencing pain. You can feel pain, and it's really painful and really hard, and then sometimes there's a bit of an opening, and then there's that pain again, and there's an opening. The intensity shifts, there's spaces around it. It isn't that solid blob that we think it is. I hope that's remotely helpful. I'm not sure, but I do really, I really sympathize and empathize. Anyway, hopefully the discussion can continue, and let's go into the breakout rooms to do that. And let me just see. I'll do breakout groups of 3 or 4 people, and then we'll have 10 minutes, okay? Hopefully that's okay, and speak to you later. Welcome back, everyone. And so we'll have some time again in case there's anything somebody wants to bring up or share or talk about, and in which case you could raise your hand either physically, and then hopefully either myself or Aparachita will see you, or you could do it digitally as well. And that would be interesting. We got Anthony raising their hand, and now I just got to find you, Anthony. I don't know where you are, but please speak.
I'm here.
Hello. I see you now.
Yeah, we had a really, right at the end, we had a really interesting, well, I found it interesting, conversation about what is the right stuff to breathe out. And there's a couple of things that came up from it. One was that I was talking about, I just consider myself a pipe. Whether I'm a water pipe or a drainage pipe, that's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to kind of conduit whatever comes down me.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing was that the idea of concepts is that, when you have a language that describes what's coming out, what's kind of like looking for, as soon as you use language for that, that has a concept attached to it.
Yeah, totally.
So can you have a description that is languageless? So you're starting to separate away from concept.
I think you can use images, Anthony, if that often works for me. So then, I think when you're using images, you're dropping a bit sort of further into, I think, it's a bit closer to the nature of reality somehow. And in terms of language, I remember reading this book by, I don't even know his name anymore, some sort of shamanic African priest, I think. Maybe somebody can remind me what the name was, but he went to school when he was 11 or so, and was taught writing, etc. And then when he came back to his village, people asked, "Can't you unlearn that?" Because they felt it was incredibly in the way. Because before that, he was so much more capable of just connecting up with the rivers and the trees, etc. But obviously you can't unlearn it, can you? But there's something that might happen in that language giving that somehow it's not what we're actually experiencing, isn't it? It comes close to it sometimes, but it can't by definition describe what we're actually experiencing, which is incredibly interesting, I find. But anyway, thank you, Anthony. I hope that was somehow resonated with what you were saying. Hester, would you like to speak? There you are. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, it was a question about when we move into the second stage of expanding out the Tonglen to other people.
Yeah.
Today I started sort of sending it out to everybody. And then I found I was focusing on a friend who only had a problem, and then I expanded out again, and it reflects my mind's a bit busy today, but I just wondered if you had any advice on whether when we move to that next stage it's specific or it's more general, or maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. When I was leading the practice, I noticed maybe that was not very clever to put it like that, either go to one person or to everyone, but it's, it's like, it's probably better just to choose that beforehand, or not give you the choice in the practice, because then you kind of like going backwards and forwards. So I won't do that the same again if I'm leading the practice again. But I think what I love about this practice is that it can be so organic. So if something comes up, you can just go with that. I think that in terms of your own suffering, whenever you're feeling like insecure, or you're feeling this sense of abandonment, or whatever it is you're experiencing, I think in that case it might be easier to just imagine a whole load of people in the world suffering from the same thing, because it might be a bit difficult to find a specific person who is also suffering from that. So then you can open it up. Whatever you're experiencing right now, somebody else, incountable beings out there, are experiencing something fairly similar in their own kind of way, but it is still the same human emotion about it. But then sometimes I think what can also happen, I really hope this happens for you, is that you feel like, oh, I'm totally fine, if you see what I mean. There's nothing even in my experience at all that is remotely like it's painful or whatever. I love it, I'm really incredibly happy today. I mean, yes, that happens to us as well. So in that case, in the practice, you might want to then start with somebody in specific that that's suffering from something. Does that sound doable? Yeah. Thank
you. Yeah, that's really helpful. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we got Sharon raised her hand. Would you like to say something, Sharon?
I was thinking back to when you started, not the practice, you thought stuff like that. I was thinking about how we're brought up, because everything is conceptualized. You have to name this and name that, and you get rewarded. Even babies and stuff like that. So it's a lot to unravel. But then what I'm finding, I really like this practice because, as I said before, it was I was taught it with the smokes.
Yeah.
And of course, the smokes would merge. Of course, that was wrong, and I was told to start again. But this way, I like it. It's more organic to me. And I'm finding myself getting very, very concentrated very quickly. And I find it a lot quicker to get into this than I do to get into the metta.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Because, like with the metta, you start it yourself, etc. But with this, it is, but I don't have a load of people thinking, oh, who do I bring in the second stage, like on the metta? It's just whoever pops up for me.
Yeah.
I'm finding the concentration becomes that immense. Like, I don't know where I stop and the outside starts, and it's very concentrated.
Oh, great. Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear it, and I think one of the things that I do love about the practice is yes, it is really towards turning towards what's here right now, and especially with the metta, I think sometimes it can get incredibly conceptual, can't it? And that isn't always beneficial, because from thinking about somebody else, you start thinking about this, start thinking about that, and there you go, you're just thinking about a whole load of stuff and not doing the practice anymore. So that is often what can happen. So I think that thing about trying to drop into something a bit less conceptual can be quite beneficial. Thank you, Sharon. Let me just see, we've got 5 minutes, and I think what I'll do is I'll just say a few things now. Firstly, there'll be a bit more space hopefully at the end. Firstly, what next? I just wanted to say that I am doing another course starting on the 24th of January, and it's 4 Sundays again. It's the same kind of times, and this is the course that I've called the Sky Behind the Clouds, and it is about difficult emotion and how Buddhism, the tools in Buddhism that are relating to working with difficult emotion, and how it's a skill. Another word for ignorance is avidya, and that means a lack of skill. So basically, I think a lot of the time we think our emotions are just a given, but we can do things to learn to deal with them better. And it's based on an old Tibetan text, the Peacock and the Poison Grove it's called. But anyway, it's also 4 sessions, so I just wanted to let you know about that, just in case you're interested in joining in with something else. So that starts the 24th of January. Another thing that I thought I'd tell you about, but that's all about me, but I'm doing a fundraising event for the West London Buddhist Centre. Until 2 years ago I worked there full time, and then I'm still doing a weekly class for the West London Centre. And as many Buddhist centres, I guess they're having an incredibly difficult time in the pandemic, so they're doing some fundraising. So the event I'm doing is with Emma Ramos, and Emma Ramos is the curator of the Southeast Asia department in the British Museum. And so it's she and I doing this event together. Part of my work is also working with art and mindfulness and reflection, and so I've been working in museums before the pandemic. So we're looking at the current exhibition in the British Museum, and we're concentrating on one painting, and I'll be doing some meditation with the painting and some writing with the painting, and she'll be giving some art historical background. We'll have some music, etc. So that is just something that I thought you might be interested in joining, and it's next week Sunday at 2 o'clock British time. And the Buddhist Centre Online were so very, very kind to offer to stream it as well. So they've made a link, so it should also be accessible on the Buddhist Centre Online web page. So that should link up to that event, just in case you'd be interested in joining in. I'm very excited about it, so I hope some of you might want to just witness that or join in with that. And yes, and for the rest, also again, Aparachita must be still somewhere there in the background. If you would like to paste that. A link to the Buddhist Centre Online donation in the chat. So yes, so this is all made possible because of the Buddhist Centre Online, the platform, and I'm very grateful for them inviting me. But yeah, you know, we've asked this so many times. I know it can get a bit annoying at some point, but anyway, I'll just say it again. I think it is really worth it. The Buddhist Centre Online doing such an incredible amount of work there, and incredibly hard-working, lovely people. So and it's not sure how much funding they'll receive, you see. So there you are. And so that's what I had to say. And then we've got a few minutes left, and I thought I just wanted to tell you that how much I enjoyed sharing this material with you. And also hoping that you've been finding it beneficial somehow, and that you'll be continuing with the practice in one way or another. And also wanted to, I'll just write my email address here in the chat. If you want to keep in touch somehow, please do so. If you want to address anything with me, this is my, I'm just writing it to somebody else now. Never mind, I should send this to everyone. Everyone, here we go. So, also in case you have some feedback for me, I realize that this might not be for everyone, or anything I might be able to learn from in terms of the presentation or how we've approached the Zoom space, or I'd really be very happy to receive any of your feedback. And then, or lastly, to say, well, maybe you want to say something maybe in the chat, or just something about us as having started together and now finishing together this morning. I'm sorry there's not a lot of time, but we could just maybe just sign off somehow by sharing some of our thoughts.